Welcome to the video for Genesis 1, 6 through 7. There are two things I'm going to do differently from now on. The first is I'm no longer going to read the English title as I just did. I'm just going to jump right into the Japanese title of each section. Okay, so it'll be like 創世記1章6節から7節. I'll just start there, starting in the next video. The second thing I'm going to do is remove the furigana from kanji that already appear on the same page. So, for example, up here we have 6節, right? Verse 6, and then 7節, verse 7. On the second setsu, as you can see, there's no furigana. But I will always make sure that there's at least one instance of that kanji that has furigana, so that you'll know how to read it if you just look back to that kanji, which will be on the same page. Okay, so you can see this here with mizu as well. We have mizu here with furigana, and then the second and third appearances here, and the ones down below do not have furigana. So you can refer back to this one if you want to see how to read the kanji. This is going to help you immerse more and get used to reading the kanji without furigana. Alright, without further ado, let's jump into today's passage. 創世記1章6節から7節. 神はまた言われた。水の間に大空があって、水と水とを分けよう。そのようになった。神は大空を作って、大空の下の水と大空の上の水とを分けられた。解説、神はまた言われた。I've translated this as God said or spoke again. Okay, so we have mata here, which is flat pitch, mata. We previously encountered this as and then, but the meaning here again is actually more common. This is the version that you're going to encounter more often. A lot of you have probably heard mata ne, which means see you again, and this is what that comes from. Okay, so 神はまた言われた. God said again. 水の間に大空があって、水と水とを分けよう。Let a sky exist in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. Okay, so here we have 間, flat pitch. This means between or in the midst of, depending on the context. Okay, so here it means between. So let's look at this. コンビニはスーパーと郵便局の間にあります。The convenience store, コンビニ, is between the supermarket, スーパー, and the post office, 郵便局の間にあります. So you can still use に here to show the location of the thing, which is in this case the コンビニ. Okay, so that means between in this case. So we list the two things that the item is between that we're talking about, and we connect those with と. So スーパーと郵便局の, put a の after that, 間に. So just pay attention to the particles being used here. Okay, 水の間, this is what we have in the text today. In this case, it means in the midst of. Okay, so we just have one object here, 水. We don't have two things like we have in the previous sentence. 水の間, in the midst of the water or the waters. Okay, so let a sky exist in the midst of the waters. That's what we have up here. Okay, next we have 大空. 大空, which literally means big sky. お means big, 空 means sky, 大空, big sky. This actually comes from the Hebrew word rakia, which is not a sky. It's actually a solid dome. And I want to show you guys that, so I'm going to click the link here. Zukai is a diagram or illustration used to elucidate a point, so let's look at that. Okay, so this is actually what the ancient Israelites thought of when they thought of the universe or the cosmos. Okay, so you can see here the firmament, it's a solid dome, literally a solid dome. Okay, so this is what the word rakia refers to, and that has been translated into Japanese as ozora. It's honestly probably not the best translation for this, because ozora just makes us think of what we now think of the sky to be, but to them it was a solid dome. It's very likely that ozora is actually influenced by the Bungo Yakuseisho, which is one of the earlier translations of the Japanese Bible. And this does indeed contain the word ozora. So, like I said, perhaps not the best translation, but it is what we have in the Japanese, and so that's what we're going to look at for now. Okay, after that we have atte. This is let there be and. Atte itself does not mean let there be, but because we end the sentence with an imperative verb, let there, we do translate this as let there as well. This comes from aru. You've seen this before. And when you conjugate a godan verb that ends in ru to the te form, which is what we have here, all you have to do is change the ru to a te. Make sure you have the small tsu here. So aru becomes atte. tsukuru, to make, becomes tsukutte, etc. This is true of all godan verbs that end in ru. Don't confuse those with ichidan verbs that end in ru. Those conjugate differently. Okay, then we have wakeo. Wakeo. This is the imperative form of the verb wakeru, and so it means divide as a command or instruction. There are several different imperative forms of ichidan verbs. In this case, we're dealing with a more literary form. The one that ends with yo is more literary. But to make it, it's very simple. You just take the dictionary form and you drop the ru, and you put a yo in its place. Okay, so this works for ichidan verbs. So wakeru becomes wakeo. To give some other examples, tabeo would be eat as a command. It's more commonly tabero in speech or tabenasai in formal speech. The ro version can be very direct, so be careful with this one. Okay, and then we have akeo, open. Okay, this is the literary imperative. And then we have akero, more common in speech, but very direct. And akenasai, the formal imperative. For now, it's okay if you know that this is a literary imperative and it means divide as a command. Okay, and so with the influence of this verb at the end of the sentence, we can translate the atte part as let there be. Okay, so we end up with the translation we have here. Let a sky exist in the midst of the waters. 水の間に大空があって and let it divide the waters from the waters. 水と水とを分けよう. Next we have そのようになった. It became so. Okay, so よう is the way something is. If you look at your English-Japanese dictionary, you will find lots of different definitions for this one. But I think that if you think of it as the way something is, it kind of fits a lot of those definitions. So this is how I would think of it if I was a beginner. And then we have ようになる, which is to come to be that way. We've seen なる before, right? It means to become. So ように, the way something is, になる, it becomes that. So to come to be that way. So for example, you could say 最近ジムに行くようになった. 最近, recently. ジム, the gym. 行く, to go. ようになった. So it's like recently I started going to the gym. But if you think of it literally, it's like recently it became that I go to the gym. Okay, obviously that's a weird English translation, but that's kind of what it literally means. So in this case, we have その, which we've seen before as well. そのようになった. It became so. This is, of course, referring to the previous event, which is God speaking the sky into existence. Next, we have some further elaboration on that. Okay, so we have 神は大空を作って、大空の下の水と大空の上の水と分けられた. God made the sky and separated the waters below the sky from the waters above the sky. Okay, so 作って is the te form of 作る, which is a godan verb. Okay, it means made and in the te form here. So 作る with this kanji means to create. If you write it with this kanji down here, it means to make. Okay, so パスタを作る. I make pasta. She makes pasta. He makes pasta, etc. Okay, then we have 大空の下. Shita is flat pitch, as you can see. The first beat is unvoiced. Shita, shita. Okay, 大空の下 means below the sky. The main thing I want you to note here is how we connect 大空の下 to the thing that actually is below the sky, which is, in this case, the waters. Okay, so once you make the phrase 大空の下, below the sky, you add a no, and then you add the thing that's below the sky. So 大空の下の水, the waters below the sky. After that, we have the exact same pattern with 上, which means above. Okay, 大空の上, above the sky. Connect that to the thing that's above it with the particle no again. 大空の上の水, the waters above the sky. And that leaves us with 神は大空を作って、大空の下の水と大空の上の水と分けられた. God made the sky and separated the waters below the sky from the waters above the sky. Okay, let's read everything together. 神はまた言われた。水の間に大空があって、水と水とを分けよう。そのようになった。神は大空を作って、大空の下の水と大空の上の水とを分けられた. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.